Sam Kahn of The Athletic. Sam, Max Olson opened for you today, and I told our viewers that that's because you demand an opening act from now on.
If I would have demanded an opening act, I would have demanded one better than Max. No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking. I hope Max didn't hear that. Love you, Max.
Yeah.
No, I do appreciate that we are back to back every week, though. Whether it's me first or him, doesn't matter. But I do think there is something charming about that, especially because we worked together for about 10 years or so at one point.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, through different places too. You guys,
yeah.
I honestly I think of you guys as like Steve Martin and Martin Short, a little bit in that, like, when I first met the two of you, you were working together, right? And it was yeah. So in my mind, it's always like that. So Sam, we've got a very full slate of games now. I mean, like tonight, it feels like there's 12 games tonight, for crying out loud. There's so many, but in the Big 12 alone, there's a lot of intriguing ones. Craig just brought up Georgia Tech and Colorado, which is most weeks. If this game was in week 2, we'd probably be talking about it a lot more because it wouldn't get lost in the shuffle. But Georgia Tech, I think, is going to be a really interesting contender in the ACC. And then Colorado, Craig did mention early in the show, he's of the belief, I am too, that like us saying, well, like all their superstars are gone would be kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, no, I still think one of the underrated things that Deion Sanders has done at Colorado is stock the roster with a lot of talent. I know so much was made about how he did it and how many players they brought in, but they really, I thought last year, did one of the best jobs in the country at identifying portal talent and getting good quality guys in. And I think they've done that again this offseason. And I thought their plan at quarterback was excellent because you got the 5-star freshman, but you don't want to throw him to the wolves necessarily. And you go get a bridge guy in Caden Salter, who's played a lot of snaps, the proven guy, he's a veteran guy, and he gives you that little bridge that you don't have to throw your 5-star freshman to the wolves. And so I thought that was a really good idea. I am fascinated by this Georgia Tech team too. Like you said, there's a lot of talk about just the kind of talent they are, and they could be a sleeper team in the ACC. I love their backfield with Haynes King, Jamal Haynes. There's a lot of talent there. And Brent Key's teams just play a style of ball that I really admire. I think they're physical, they're tough. They're going to give you everything. So of course, we all saw that 8 overtime game they took Georgia last year. And to me, the way Haynes King plays kind of embodies what Brent Key's team is all about. Like, he's a tremendous competitor. He's going to lay it all out there. He's not afraid to throw his body around. And he, for my money, he's honestly one of the most fun quarterbacks to watch. Got a kind of a funky throwing motion, but he gets the ball there and just a supreme talent.
Sam, of the mega matchups this weekend, of which there are many, if you can only pick one game, what are you watching? And if it's the obvious, don't feel bad because that's what probably 10+ million people are going to be watching as well.
It's actually not the obvious. It's not Texas, Ohio State. Although I am going to be watching plenty of that on Saturday morning. To me, it's LSU and Clemson.
Yeah. And
for the main reason, because of the two quarterbacks, because we're not getting 2 first-time starters like we do in Texas, Ohio State. We're getting 2 veteran guys. We're getting 2 guys. We're getting a guy in Garrett Nussmeier who could be a top 5, top 10 pick next year if the season goes right. We're getting Cade Klubnik, who maybe could get himself into the first-round conversation as well. And you're talking, I think, 2 real national title contenders. Not that Texas and Ohio State are not, but I think Texas and Ohio State have a lot more questions to answer across the roster with some of the losses they had. LSU loaded up in the portal to go get weapons for Garrett Nussmeier. They also shored up that secondary a little bit. And Clemson, of course, we know doesn't really use the portal, but they did get a few guys, a few impact guys to add to the roster. And now this is, I think, the 3rd year now with Garrett Riley and Clay Klubnik together. So you want to see how that comes together. Adding Tom Allen as a DC. I'm really fascinated by both these teams, and I think that to me is the one that I've circled on my calendar for Saturday night.
I'm surprised it's not Bama FSU, Sam. I'm disappointed.
That is very curious though, because because of just last year, we just sort of gloss over like a mega matchup and that and just go, oh, well, it's FSU sucks now, so it's not going to be a game or something. That's kind of the vibe I get from it, but who the hell knows, man?
Yeah,
who the hell knows?
It's a very big number that Alabama has to cover on the road. So my hope is that Florida State knocks that down a little bit and Alabama doesn't cover. That's what I hope. Anything more
you
than
and
that,
a lot of degenerates out there.
Yeah. Anything more than that, like I'll seriously enjoy heavily, Sam.
Yeah, I think the reason why I think that perception is there is just because of what people think of Alabama's roster. I think they were able to retain so many of their guys. Obviously, they've got the new quarterback, and getting Ryan Grubb back as OC, I think there's a lot of optimism about, hey, this is a loaded team and a loaded roster. And if Grubb can pull off the kind of magic that you saw him pull off at Washington with Michael Penix and when he was together with Kalen DeBoer, Ty Simpson is not untalented. He may not be Jalen Milroe in terms of physical freak, but he can move around. He can throw the ball. He's a pretty good recruit. So I'm really intrigued by them. And Castellanos was an interesting addition for Florida State, and certainly to see Gus Malzahn, him running that offense, them kind of reuniting the way. I think that is going to be a good fit for Castellanos. And I think I'm not expecting them to cover, but if they do, I wouldn't be terribly shocked.
Yeah. Go ahead, Craig.
Oh, no. Do you have a follow-up to that? Or?
No. I was just going to ask about another game.
Okay, yeah. Well, let me go ahead and just roll down the lines. We're talking about some of the bangers. And I do want to ask you about like kind of the Big 12 narrative these first couple of weeks as well before we let you go. But Notre Dame, Miami, I feel like is the other kind of big one hanging out there that we haven't at least touched on. And I picked Miami because it's week one, and nobody really knows, right? It's in Miami, but I can understand why Notre Dame is kind of an obvious choice for people as well. But this one's very interesting coming up on Sunday night. A great way to close the weekend.
Yeah, we have to do picks on our site every week, and this was the one I think I had the hardest time with, just because a lot of new skill guys in Miami, but they bring back 4 quality offensive linemen up front. So I think they're going to be able to bang with Notre Dame. Asking a first-time starter, C.J. Carr, to go on the road and win that. Not that Miami is the most intimidating road environment. We know it's not. But I still do think it's going to be a tall challenge for them. So, and I'm not, and you guys know we've talked about this before, I'm not super in love with Carson Beck, but I think I kind of lean with the experience on that one. And so I'm kind of leaning Miami. The only thing that gives me pause is Mario Cristobal going to make a decision that makes you scratch your head and ends up costing them the game, which has happened before. Yep. But if he manages the game properly, then I think I kind of give Miami the edge here. And they've really built that roster up, and he's recruited at a really high level. You feel like it needs to kind of come together. They almost got there last year, except for that loss late in the season. I don't think they have that kind of ceiling this year, but they do have a lot of talent. And so I'm going to kind of lean on that early on and not bet on a first-time starter on the road.
Sam, I never thought I would say this as a person who, from my youth to all the way through college, would occasionally go to a game at the Orange Bowl, but I do miss the Orange Bowl. I think Miami, when you move into a stadium that when you walk from the parking lot or wherever you have to park in the neighborhood there to the front gate, and you don't think that you're going to get robbed, I think it makes people too comfortable. And I mean, look, the Orange Bowl was just raucous, and then you just can't. Yeah. I don't know if you can really create that environment for college football in an NFL stadium.
No, I'm very anti NFL stadium. Like I saw, there's so many of these kickoff games this weekend that are at those places, and I saw even, I think, is it Charlotte and App State are even playing like at the Panther Stadium or something like that? Yeah. Like, what are we doing? I don't understand that. They're so antiseptic. The atmosphere is not there. There was, to your point, Paul, there's nothing like the old Orange Bowl and the Hurricanes running through the smoke. Like that was just a vibe, and you're not going to get that. Now, the NFL stadium amenities are nice, but it's just college football is meant to be played in a college football venue, not an NFL venue, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam, the one of the other games I thought was really interesting this week is Syracuse and Tennessee, because both of them have quarterbacks that did not think that they were going to be quarterbacking at the schools that they're quarterbacking at as of like May 20th. Like they're just like they're there now, and once spring was over, they left. Now, obviously Tennessee has a big advantage. They're 14-point favorites in the game, but for both these schools, they are kind of in the same spot of let's hope this new guy works out pretty quickly.
Yeah, no doubt. This was a tough one for me too when we were going through it, because I really do like Fran Brown, and I really love what he's doing there in Syracuse so far. And I thought the Angeli take was great. I thought it was a really underrated take because he wasn't a headline guy, but we've seen a little bit of what he can do, in the playoff, and he had a start in the Sun Bowl a few years ago. And anytime they've had to run Angeli out there at Notre Dame, he's been pretty solid. And so you like that about it. But I just think Syracuse roster, they got so depleted from bigger programs taking their guys in the portal. And they did a pretty decent job supplementing and filling the gaps. But they lost so much from a snap production standpoint. Tennessee, I really like Joey Aguilar. I do think he's got the tendency to turn the ball over a little too much for my taste, but I do think he fits the offense really well. The type of things that they need him to do to be able to throw the ball in the deep choice routes, to be able to run the ball when he needs him to do it. He can do those things, and he's got some confidence. He's got real arm strength. So I am kind of leaning toward Tennessee covering that just because I think the talent gap, is going to be a little too much. And I like Aguilar. I think he's going to be one of the cool stories. I think he's somebody that people are going to watch this season because of his tangential relation to this whole Nico circus, because he's the one that we know the whole story of the tree. Like, he was at UCLA and Nico goes to UCLA, ends up at Tennessee. I think you're going to have a lot of casual fans watching him closely just to see how he does because, he ended up there because of the whole Nico circus.
So we know, and as a guy that covers the Big 12 on a frequent basis, their narratives are out there about every school and conference and whatnot, but there is the narrative they're not quite on par or deserving maybe of more playoff spots as opposed to other leagues. Sam, this is a big weekend as far as matchups with names. You got Cincy, Nebraska. You've got Colorado hosting Georgia Tech. You've got Baylor hosting Auburn. Utah at UCLA, and TCU at North Carolina. So 5 games right out of the gates. And I know other leagues can say, well, hey, Texas is playing Ohio State, Oklahoma's playing Michigan, so on and so forth, Auburn, Baylor. But for the Big 12 in particular, how big do you think it is on this opening weekend to go and put some wins out there and be able to have those data points if you need them at the end of the year?
I hate to say it, but it is, because I hate this discourse. I hate making narratives about leagues this early in the season. We used to do this with the Pac-12 from 2015 to 2020. Every time the Pac-12 teams would lose a game early in the year, we're like, oh, this was in the 4-team era, of course. The Pac-12's out of the playoff. And I just think that's such a bad way to look at the sport. It's a bad way to think about the sport. But the reality is guess what? The power brokers are going to be using that data for their advantage. So if Auburn beats Baylor and Nebraska beats Cincinnati and UCLA beats Utah and even North Carolina, if all those results play out against the Big 12, that's going to be Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti or the fans that root for this conference are going to be like, see, that's why the Big 12 needs fewer automatic bids than our leagues or whatever. And I hate that. I don't like it. But yes, it is important. Like, if Baylor were to beat Auburn, I think that would be huge. I think the Cincinnati-Nebraska game tonight is sneaky interesting. I know everybody's talking about mini Mahomes, Raiola playing in Arrowhead tonight, but Brendan Sorsby is one of the better quarterbacks in the country. When we did our quarterback rankings in the offseason, we had him in the top 20 because of how much people liked his skill set. And I think, to me, Cincinnati's an interesting spot this year. That's one I'm really going to be keeping an eye on closely tonight. And then, but yeah, I think TCU, of course, on the center stage, like, everybody's gonna be watching that game because it's the only game on Labor Day. It's on its own in a time slot. And I hope Sonny Dyson don't have the same issue that they had when the last time they were on that stage a couple of years ago against Colorado, because, buddy, we're not going to hear enough about Bill Belichick in North Carolina if that happens. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it is really important for the conference. If they want to be respected, you do have to win the games. And so this is a huge weekend for the Big 12 without question.
Sam, I would love to see a season where the Big 10 and SEC kind of top to bottom have the same kind of season that the Big 12 and ACC do, where, yeah, you've got a couple of elite teams, but everybody else is kind of balanced out. And even like the Big 12, it's not, but like, just to show that, like, hey, roster movement means something. There was not roster movement. Now there is. So there was zero roster movement, and we've gone from 0 to unchecked. And it's like Curt Flood in Major League Baseball. Once those floodgates open, like, the Yankees have won a bunch of World Series since that time, but they had like 20 before then. They've won far less since that time.
And that's why I think it's so dangerous to use historical data in these arguments about the conference supremacy, because the last 20 years or 25 years, the SEC or some of the big time programs there were able to build super teams because you could hoard all the depth. That doesn't happen anymore. We're not in the super team era anymore. Nobody's able to do that. There are teams that are more talented than others, Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, etc., Georgia, but there are much fewer of those teams now because the backups on those teams or the third string guys on those teams who would turn into 2 or 3 year starters down the road, they're leaving to go start somewhere else or to play and get paid somewhere else. And so to me, and that's what I'm interested to see too, is like, and I don't know if this is just anecdotal from the first week, but I feel like some of the lines that we've seen are smaller than they would be normally. And some of that may be because it's opening weekend, but I wonder if some of that is we're still trying to figure out which of these teams are good, and maybe the talent gap is closing a little bit. Now, the elite of the elite are still going to be the ones that recruit at the top 10 level. I think are still going to be up there. But I think when you get past that elite group of the ones that you really can feel are national championship contenders, I think the distance between them and the rest of the Power Four is really closing because of how much the portal has equalized and player movement has equalized all of this.
Sam, are you still in the pickup line?
Yes. Okay. I'm in until 4:00.
Okay. Well, I hope you've got a good spot and you can exit quickly. Enjoy the games tonight, and we will talk to you next week.
No problem. Thanks so much. Have a good one.